Morning, everybody. How are the heads? Okay. I'll try not to be too loud. Good morning and welcome to the annual fans forum that we have at playoff weekend, and change the venue this year, so many thanks to the Salt Box for hosting us. I think it's a great venue, not just for this, but Friday and Saturday nights as well, and maybe a Sunday also. My name's John Donovan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm involved with Ice Time TV, who cover the Cardiff Devils. For those of you who do know me, well, I can only apologise. We have four distinguished panelists on the stage with us today. Just a few house rules before we start. We don't have a roving mic today, so yeah, we might have a few hangovers in the room, but you're going to have to shout your questions. I'll do my best to repeat it to the gents up here. We're not moderating it too much. We have four very distinguished guests, so let's try and even out the questions. Todd loves to talk, so maybe keep Todd as quiet as possible. And just finally, it is a fans forum. You can ask what you want, but if we're getting bogged down in a subject too much, I'll be given a kick by somebody just to move it on a little bit. So it's not like anything's off limits, but we don't want to spend the whole hour debating maybe one thing. Aside from that, it's really yours to control. Saying that, once I've introduced the guests, I'm going to ask the first question. But on the panel today, we have, currently from the Milton Keynes franchise, but formerly of the Hull Stingrays, Nottingham Panthers, and Cardiff Devils, Guillaume Doucet. Paul, I've got to get this in just because I love my old-time hockey. From the legendary development of the Big Blue Machine, the Durham Wasps, let's bring him back, and now coach of the Guildford Flames, Paul Dixon. Mike, is it a co-owner of the Coventry place? How best to address you? Co-owner, general, do-it-all, keeps the club going every day. From the Coventry Blaze, Mike Cowley. And the man who's done a few good things in Cardiff since he's been there, formerly also of the Belfast Giants, both as a player and a GM, and formerly of the Bracknell Bees, if we've got any bees in here today, Mr. Todd Kelham. So, gentlemen, I am going to throw you a little bit of a softball to start off before the fans get into you. As I was driving up to Nottingham on Friday, I realised, what's this, the 15th season of the Elite League? And despite its critics, and a lot of the criticisms are justified, this is probably the most stable British Ice Hockey Foundation we've had. If you remember the old Heineken League, the Super League, and now the Elite League. So I just want to get your opening thoughts from all of you, really, as a player, Paul as a new coach to the league, but someone who experienced the old Heineken League and BIHA, and then from Todd and Mike. Where do you think the Elite League is at the moment? And are there, maybe one or two things just off the top of your head, what would be the next stages of improving it? And Guy, Todd said you're going to do the talking today, so I'll start with you.
I would say that, obviously, since I've been here, the caliber and the level of play definitely improved every year. So for me, as a player, that's always good because it helps get better as a player, it helps improve. I hope for you guys, fans, the show we put on, the entertainment we put on the ice is better year after year. I can't say I would improve anything like right now on the top of my head, but just the level of play and the show we put on, I think that's what I would, yeah.
Continue to strive to improve.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Paul, I'm interested in your take, as I say, from someone who was old Heineken League and Durham and coming up, who's now come back into the Elite League this year. What are your first thoughts on it, and where would you like it to go?
Obviously, I think where it's been and where it's gone to now, I think if you look at the teams that's competing in the Champions Hockey League, that's made huge steps. Also, I think just what Douce was saying, the standard of import also, it seems to be getting better as well. And I think the league in general now throughout Europe and throughout the world also is getting stronger and better all the time. Where it can go, it just keeps on getting better, I think.
Mike, Todd, from management point of view?
I go back quite a long way, and I think looking back over the last 15 to 18 years, it had become obvious in the early 2000s, up to 2002, that Super League was really for the elite and that it could never be sustainable for a long time at that sort of level. The BNL, in which my team played at the time, was really sort of almost maxed out. And I think it was inevitable that the two had to come together at
Mike,
some
sorry to
stage.
interrupt. I'm getting sound from the back that maybe you're not being heard and you're making some valuable points. Can you put the mic slightly closer to your...
Yep. Can you hear me now? You get that back there? Okay. Yeah, back in those days, I think it was inevitable that the two leagues had to come together. And we found some means by which we felt we could play together and build it forward from there. And I think, as John said already, it's become recognised as the most sustainable hockey league that we've had in this country for quite a long time. It is getting better year by year. The standard of players has improved year by year. And I think I see it having still a great future. Hope it continues.
Okay. No, I agree with all these guys. I think, for me, this year was the best hockey that the Elite League has ever had. I think the addition of Guildford and MK made a huge difference to that. I think when you bring new franchises in, you're always worried about how they're going to do. And I mean, I think everyone thought, both teams, when you saw how they recruited, you thought, man, these guys are going to be good. And they both performed. And I think MK started out on fire in the Challenge Cup and stuff, and then sort of dwindled because of injury. But both teams had a great year. The job Paul did was amazing in Guildford. I think you probably shocked every team in the league. You kicked our butts a few times, which I'm still a little bitter about. But it's great to see because they didn't join the league and join at the bottom, right? Guildford finished 7th. They were up there in 5th. They were up there in 4th a lot of the time. 6th. So, I got to go. Sorry, guys.
Get it right, Todd.
Yeah, 6th. Wow, that was a mistake. I better pass the mic back. But honestly, I think the league is getting better. I think the teams we obviously want to improve the situation in Edinburgh. I know it's a question that'll get asked, but you don't want one team losing that many times. You don't want one team where it's almost like a given and it got like that. And it's not a rip on Scotty. It's just that organization needs to be better because you're only as good as your lowest denomination. And right now we have to improve that so that we have a great town in Edinburgh, great city, and we just want that franchise to be lifted up a bit. So,
right. I think we all echo that point. It is a great city, and anyone who remembers the Merrifield races knows that hockey can thrive in that community. So, guys, they're all warmed up. The 4 panelists, they're all in. It's over to you. It really is your session. So, do we have a question from the floor? Don't be shy. Really, I've not scripted anything today, so I am relying on you. Yes, sir. Brayhead fan at the bar.
It's just to follow up on Todd's point there about Edinburgh, and you say it's got to improve. Is there anything in mind or in hand to do that?
I think this is a good question, and Todd, I am going to throw it first at you, but then perhaps you and Michael will take this one. We say every year, perhaps, that Edinburgh need to improve and should improve, and we want them to improve. What steps can the league actually take to enforce that improvement, if indeed you can at all?
I never think it's the league's responsibility. Like we aren't a league that has a sponsor of paying us £1 million to naming rights for our league. So we don't have this pot of money that we're like, oh, let's just give Edinburgh £500,000 to jumpstart their organization. They're limited by facilities. I think the Murrayfield Arena or Murrayfield Ice Rink needs to improve. That's not down to the franchise, but improving a facility is an expense that the league can't take on. And as a franchise owner, we can only help so much, right? Like we can't, unless we all decide to say, okay, let's go around the table, we'll all give 10 grand and we'll give it to Edinburgh and we'll let them put it into players but like the problem is it's players, right? So I'm a part owner in a team, you're an owner in a team. We're very much our own silos. We're very much on our own, even though we collectively work together, but there isn't a pot of money to share around, and that's the problem, right? We need a massive sponsor or something to come on board, and then maybe we could say, okay, we got a 5-year plan in Edinburgh, and this is what we're doing. I don't want the whole thing to be focused on Edinburgh because it's kind of a negative thing on a great weekend, but Mike might be able to comment more on this.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case of throwing money at any one franchise in order to improve it. What I've found over the years is that we're far better trying to work with a struggling franchise, if you like. It's a pity to call them that, but let's be honest, they have struggled to gain support and gain crowds, and traditionally have been down there at the bottom of the league. But all of us have worked hard trying to give advice and help where needed to try and improve the situation in Edinburgh. And we're committed to continue doing that. The biggest improvement that could be made, as Todd's just alluded to there, is an improvement in the facility or even a new facility. It could happen in the future. That would be a massive lift for both Edinburgh and for the Elite League. And, until that time, Edinburgh are a valuable and wanted part of the Elite League, and we'll continue to try and assist in any way the league can to try and improve that.
Anyone else? Gaz, you look really sort of taken there. Do you want to...
John, there's one right here.
Oh, sorry, the lady over here. Go on.
What's your view on the situation about the Hands trying to take over the franchise and essentially muscle Scott out? And do you think in your opinion, do you think the league will accept it, or are they already declined it?
I honestly don't know enough details about it because it's something happening in Murrayfield and in Edinburgh that probably you guys all know about, but we don't really know about it. So we have an agreement with Scott right now, and I think it's pretty much down to what the arena decide of who moves forward and who they. But like we can't really get involved in it because I think it's down to an ice time agreement with whoever gets it. So can I talk about the other controversial thing that should get brought up?
Absolutely. There's only 3 other people here. Todd, it's your show. Go for it.
No. I can probably walk out of here after this because this is the only reason I'm here.
You're gonna drop the mic, okay?
Yeah. The Cameron Hughes issue. I think no one had the balls to ask the question. I'll ask the question. Where's Cameron Hughes? Is anyone wondering where he was? Yeah. Did anyone take the time out of their busy weekend to tweet him something horrific? Anyone in here? No? Nobody, huh? You did. Good. Thanks for admitting that. No, he basically, it was our call. We asked him to stand down. We asked him not to come yesterday because I talked to him at length about it, and obviously he's been doing this. He's a crowd engagement. He does what he does. He's done it for the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, the NBA finals, the Olympics. Done it all over the world. He's never had a negative reaction like he's had here. He had over 1,000 messages from "we don't want you" to "if you show up in our block, I'm going to punch you in the face" to "you're a piece of this and you're a fat this and shove this up your this" and that kind of he sent me a lot, and he just said, and he actually said, "I still don't care." But we talked about what's a win, and we said if he shows up and he kills it and he does a great job and he wins over the crowd and only 1,000 people boo him. But he had people saying "we've coordinated our block, and when you come to our block, we're going to sit down and boo you." Or "we've coordinated our block, and someone's going to push you down the stairs." And he just said "I'm a distraction to a great event." And he said, "I've never wanted to be a distraction to a great event. And you already have a great event, and your fans don't want us there, so there's no point." And I said, "Yeah, there's no point. You guys, the atmosphere is amazing. We weren't doing it because we said, oh, the atmosphere's not great. We just did it because we always see I'm a big believer if an event's like this and you can make it like this, why not, right? And I've had him in Belfast and I've had him in Cardiff, and I'd say 95% of the people love him and 5% probably don't, but he's great with kids, he's great with people, he's great with interaction, but the collective reaction from our fan base, and probably not the people in here, was appalling, absolutely appalling. It's the first time I've been embarrassed of EIHL fans. It's a very football mentality, and it was unfair to him. He's a good person, but I took the decision to tell him to stand down. So that's the explanation of Cameron Hughes. Now I can leave, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Todd, for clearing that up. We appreciate it. Before we go back to the floor, Paul, I'm going to bring you in here, and I apologize for asking you all kind of the old-time questions, but I remember the old Wembley weekends, maybe coaches who weren't there. would go and scout and go and look at players and what have you. What's your brief this weekend? I'm not asking names, but are you scouting? Are you enjoying the beer? What's Paul Dixon doing this weekend?
It's a very good question. I'm trying to stop all these other teams stealing my top players. Actually, that's what I'm trying to do. No, obviously the weekend. It's been a while since I've been back in the top flight. So to come and experience it at this level again, obviously to come to Nottingham and witness the 2 games yesterday and the final today, not forgetting the 3rd and 4th game also. But no, just taking it all in, and like I said, it's kind of, we just have to, we are looking, obviously, as we do, at recruitment as well, and there's a lot of good players in this league, like I said, but it's been good so far. Really enjoyed the atmosphere. It was the atmosphere that was very noticeable yesterday. Obviously, the first game was very good, and then obviously the Sheffield, Nottingham, the rivalry there between the 2 teams, and what a great game it was. So yeah, but like I said, just taking the weekend in, taking it all in, and taking it back to Guildford next year, and hopefully that it's a weekend that we want to strive to push for at the end of the season next year.
Absolutely, and not far away. And Guy, Paul was talking about atmosphere there. You know, you played in that final last year. That's, what was it, triple overtime, 3 days, 7 weeks sort of game. And the crowd was phenomenal the whole weekend. What is it like to play in this atmosphere?
It's something special, to be honest. It's, as a player, you don't get to experience a weekend. The full weekend, the experience is very special. I've been saying the whole time, it's fun to be here this weekend and not playing, because you actually meet a lot of people, you get to interact with fans, you get to see a lot of things. It's a great weekend when you're not playing. But playing in that game last year was probably one of my best memories. Even if we lost, it was really cool. I got to score too, which I kind of like doing that. So
You're not bad at that.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And I mean, as much as you want to be in that game and win, just being here and enjoying and seeing the town and walking around, I think, like, just to see you guys interact with each other, even if you don't support the same team, you talk to each other, you have a beer together. I think that you don't see that anywhere else in the world, I think, and you don't see that in other European hockey leagues. So that's something to cherish, I think.
Here. No, I agree with that. So guys, he's given you some praise. It's back over to you now. Any more questions from the panel? Sean?
Professional player, what's your opinion on this 3rd, 4th place game? Obviously 2 years ago you had to play in it. You know, obviously the league has got nothing else to put on, but as a pro player who doesn't want to play in it point blank, how do you know, what's your view of that 3rd, 4th place game?
I've never played in it because I was injured that year. I talked about it with Mike this morning. I understand why it's there. You guys are paying a lot of money to come for the weekend, so you want something to watch, you want entertainment. As a player, you want to perform, you want to do your best, but when there's nothing to play for, it's obviously not the same thing. We've played something like 70 games this year, so this one is not the one you're looking forward to, but I understand why it's there. I think it's unfortunate, to be honest, I think it's unfortunate for guys like Clarkey today and maybe Corey Nielsen's. Their last time playing in front of you guys, playing in the EIHL would be a game like this. But I understand why it's there. Maybe Todd doesn't agree with me. No.
Well, this is going to be a perennial question, I guess. Every year we have a 3rd and 4th place playoffs, and every year we have a fans forum. Any kind of update from last year as to what we can fill this valuable gap with?
I mean, I don't know if Mike would want me to say this as a board member. I hate the 3rd and 4th place game. I think it's stupid. I don't think it's fair. In hockey, your last game, that's the whole point of the playoffs. When you lose, you're out, right? I played in it. No, I don't think I ever played in it. We coached in it. Me and Lordo, we lost, and 2 years ago we had to play it. And it's as much motivation to get to the final as to not play in the 3rd and 4th place game. I think the one thing that as professionals, I think, 7 years ago when they had this 3rd and 4th place game, it became an absolute joke. Like, I remember seeing Curtis Cruikshank, he was the goalie for Nottingham, he was playing center. Like, just treated it like a complete joke, which is totally wrong, right? These guys are still getting paid to play hockey, but like, as a former player, I don't even know if fans would care if you scrapped it. The only thing I would say is, if you're a Fife Flyers fan or a Nottingham fan, you paid a lot of money to be here, like Doucet said. You paid a lot of money to be here, and you're only seeing your team once, right? So if I'll give you an example. We used to play the Scottish versus English under 18s, was it? And the third and fourth place game has double the attendance of that game ever did. So even though that was a more competitive game, and from the business side of things, for that game that under 18s or whatever it was, sorry, under 18s, Dicko? Yeah. Under 16. So for that game to take place, we had to allocate something like 100 tickets, right? So we had to give all of the players in that game a ticket for the weekend. We had to give all their parents a ticket. We had to pay for hotels. The cost of that game was about 15,000, 20,000 pounds to us. So that's why we started doing the third and fourth place game again. We've had many ideas pushed around the boardroom about what we could do. We talked about every team picking a charity and saying, putting up $5,000 for the winning team in the third and fourth place game to donate to a charity. Because then at least you're never gonna mail it in if there's money on the line for a charity. I don't think. We've talked about do you do an all-star game? Do you do a skills competition? But these players have gone. Like I bet half your team is gone already. A lot of players go home, so it doesn't make sense. But we'd love a suggestion. Not today because we don't have time. But we every idea you've thought about, we've probably batted around the boardroom. Would you agree?
Yeah, what we thought we have to provide entertainment. It's all about what the fans want. And as a player, I don't know any player who actually wants to play in a third and fourth place playoff. Their season is over the day before, and at that point in time, all they want to do if they've not got to the final is go and have a drink and get ready to go home. But mindful of the fact that we need to provide some level of entertainment, then there aren't many other options for us. I think it's become less of a joke over the years, although, again, nobody wants to play in it. But I do know that, one or two of you have a little flutter on the number of goals that are going to get scored. And maybe that's the entertainment element that comes out of it. I don't know.
Todd, Mike, sorry, just to come back on something there. I know you maybe said it as a jokey thing, Todd, but throwing it back on the fans there, if they had it, the league would be open, welcome, to fan suggestion as to what they would like to fill this portion of the weekend. But
it's the logistics, because there's all these ideas, but think of what I just told you about the under 16s game, the cost of it, right? So you could say, why don't you do a conference tournament? Why don't you do a kids tournament? There's all these things, because you can't just say, come on down for a tournament, pay your own way, don't pay for hotels, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So there's always a cost element. I think I don't know if an all-star game would get more, all-star game besides the two teams in the final. I don't know. I really don't know. We're the only league in the world that has it, right? So I don't know what to do about it.
Just to repeat the question, for the new teams coming in, Milton Keynes and Guildford, who I think we'd all agree have been a very, very welcome addition to the Elite League, is there anything the Elite League could do to actually make that transition smoother, better, easier? I'm not sure.
No, I mean, personally, from Guildford's side, from how we were accepted by the league and the teams in the league, it's been incredible. I think, obviously, like I said, it was always, last summer was going to be a tough task for us coming into a new league and how we approached it. But the transition from coming up from the league to the Elite League was made smoothly, obviously, by everybody and all the teams that were already in the Elite League. But it's to move forward to maybe anything any easier. I don't know, maybe next year, after being in it for this year, we could answer that question a little bit better. But like I said, from our own personal, from the Flames organisation, the transition was made really good, and it was accepted by all the Elite League teams in there.
And did the conference system work for you in terms of the conference you went into, and what are your feelings on the nature of the conference system?
Yeah, the conference. I mean, it was tough. I think in Doucet, I think our conference was very tough. It was very competitive. Obviously, four totally different teams, all set up for their own rinks, for their own venues. But like I said, the conference system, it works. There were very competitive games, and our conference went down to the last weekend. So I think obviously from that side, the conference system works. It was set up to do that. But yeah, no, all in all, a good experience for us.
Guy, just to slightly slant that same question, but slant it a different way for you, as someone playing in this league for quite some time now, did Peter Russell lean on you as a leader? Were you able to talk to the new guys in the locker room coming into Milton Keynes and maybe explain the nature, the culture of the British game, the elite league, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the league championship is so important, that's the main trophy. Guys that are new to this league don't understand that. To this day, guys have played the full season and they still don't understand what it is because they never been in MK this year. I mean, we were not really in the race, so guys don't really understand what it's like to be in the race and play for the league title. So I think that's something that maybe I talk to and help the guys realize, because when you say there's a 4-game playoffs for a Canadian guy coming over here, they're like, what? 4-game? What do you mean? So we played 56, yeah. But when you're in, I was fortunate enough to be in the race in Cardiff for 2 years, and that's something special because every single game means something, and every single game it's a must-win. If you lose one, you think you're gonna lose the. So yeah, that's something maybe that I brought to MK.
The game sevens from September onwards is kind of how Andrew Law talks about it.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard.
There we go. Guys, anyone else? Any newcomers? Yes, the lady in the Nottingham. Okay, so question for management, I think, in terms of it has been a very welcome, or two very welcome additions with Guildford and MK. Is there a ceiling on it for the time being? Are we looking at expansion? What's the current thoughts of the Elite League board?
Well, there are no direct plans for any expansion at all at this stage, but what I will say is that there aren't a queue of teams who can possibly play at the level that the rest of us are playing at. It's something to consider for the future if that changes, but it is difficult. We are probably about where we will be for the next few years anyway. But what I will say about Milton Keynes and Guildford joining is that we had quite a history against both of those teams in years gone by, and it was brilliant to renew those rivalries. And I think that it worked in the conference system for us because we got good games against them, and I think that really improved the whole situation with two new teams coming in. Sometimes difficult for teams to get up to scratch, get up to the right level straight away. But, we all saw that they were there and, they were a valuable addition from day one.
Mike, no, don't pause. So I asked this question to Todd again, he's going to punch me. But Todd doesn't like this question, but I feel I have to ask you on behalf of the fans. The league structure below, is that a concern? Is it not anything that's really on your radar? When you say, only because you mentioned there are not a queue of teams who can play at this level, and that distance, that chasm seems to have got wider again. Is that a concern, or is that just not on the Elite League radar?
Well, it's a major concern, obviously, because we have to maintain a franchise system. We couldn't possibly consider promotion and relegation. I mean, a team dropping out of the Elite League would really drop into oblivion by dropping into the league below. It's not a commercial league, and we are essentially commercial enterprises. So yeah, the distance between the Elite League and the league below is a concern to us, especially now. Now the EPL has gone altogether, and as we said before, there aren't that many teams who can possibly make that jump, and the jump now is huge. The jump is massive.
And Todd, just because you're not looking at me at the moment, I'm just going to finish on this point. It's a question we ask every year. Any news on the London franchise?
Which one? The KHL one?
The KHL? Well, let's start with that.
I don't know. The only person that is going to have a deal in London right now is Neil Black. So Neil Black has an agreement for the London franchise, not in the KHL, in our league. I think, again, you talk logistically, anyone that tells you there's a team being announced now to start in September for the KHL for any league, it doesn't work like that. And especially in Wembley Arena, there's no ice pad in Wembley Arena, so they have to drill into a floor that is a suspended floor It's a 3-year project. Unless Simon Cowell wants to move out of the X Factor May tryouts or whatever they do out of Wembley Arena in May, it's not going to happen in the next. It's a 3-year project. But I do think it's on the cards. I think if we had a team in London, it would be huge for this league. I think anytime you can get a good facility in a capital city. And that's why we go back to Edinburgh, how important Edinburgh is if we can get, I think a new facility in Edinburgh. If I win the lottery, I'd put a rink in Edinburgh. And like maybe a Cardiff-sized rink. I think we're 3,000 seats. It's a good number. But London would improve. I think it'd be way easier to get sponsorship. I would think it'd be way easier to get more national media coverage if we were as a team in London, because it's the capital. So.
Just before, I promise I will go back to the floor, but Paul, I got to ask, and I'm sorry I keep coming to you on this, the North East, why hasn't that got a top-level team? You know, I remember Durham, the Big Blue Machine, Whitley Bay. I know again, and Todd's going to say you got to build an ice rink, you got to have an actual facility there to go into, but surely growing up in that area, you must have a feeling that that's a hotbed of hockey up there in the North East.
Yeah, it once was, but real shame of the state it's in now, absolutely. I think what happened is if we go back to the first league of the EIHL, the Super League, Sir John Hall got involved. He wanted to build a sporting empire. He obviously had the football team, he bought a basketball team, he bought the rugby team, and he took the Durham Wasps out of Durham and moved it to Newcastle. And overnight, the rink that was Durham obviously got sold, and that's no longer there. And the team that went to Newcastle, obviously, like you say, the logistics of running a team in Newcastle, didn't have their own rink. They played out the arena, pumped a lot of money into it, lost a lot of money. The next thing you know, that franchise has gone as well. So it's that knock-on effect. But yeah, very sad. Because like you say, if you go back to the 80s, the 90s, there was a lot of good players come out of the Durham system, but the rink in Durham was family owned. It was a hockey rink. It wasn't a public facility rink. It was a hockey rink. And I think that obviously, like I said, the people that came out of that system, we grew up there. We grew up together. A lot of good players came out of there, and it's no longer there. And like you said, it's sad that that's not there anymore. And obviously just touching on to the Whitley Bay ice rink as well, and the Durham and Whitley Bay rivalry back in that time was big as well, and for whatever reason that Whitley Bay junior program has dropped off also. You know, I don't have the answer for why that has happened, but yeah, it's sad.
It is indeed, absolutely. Guys, back to the floor. God, I've asked all the traditional ones now. We've done playoffs, we've done London. Yes, sir.
What is the league about consistency of referees?
I caught the end of that. Forgive me if I get the question wrong. Consistency of referees. Are we constantly moving towards that? And I guess we can throw in four-man officiating into that as well. Guy, you're a player. Let's Guy, do you like the penalty calls that are made on you?
I really don't want to comment on that.
Okay, we'll go to the gentleman's question in a minute. Let me ask you as a player about four-man officiating, okay? Would you be more comfortable with that question? How have you found the transition to four-man officiating?
I think it helps. Obviously, like your question is right, that what everybody's looking for is consistency. And I think with four-man system, it probably helps in the overall consistency of the officiating. And that's what I say we, I mean, that's what the league is going for. So that's nice. I don't have all the answers regarding how to make it better. I'm not gonna go down that road.
Fair enough. He's pleading the fifth. Paul, anything to add, or is the mic going on again?
No, obviously it's a tough question, because I think at the end of the day, you know, if you win or lose or decisions are made by the referees, everybody likes to blame the referee. It's a hard job. It's a very hard job. And I think the one thing, since certainly that we've come into the league and what we've noticed throughout the course of this year, is the four-man officials. It definitely has made the league for the calls better, because obviously you've got one at one end and one at the other. A lot of the stuff, maybe that one guy misses, the other guy's calling. But like I said, in that short period of the year that we've been here, we would definitely could see progress. Just in that consistency with that four-man system overall. But, I think on any given night, there's going to be coaches, fans, players, you get the calls, some nights you don't, and I think that's the frustration with any sport, isn't it? But like I said, officiating it's a hard job, and I think sometimes we're all too easy to blame the referee or the linesman for whatever calls they do or don't make.
Mike, Todd, from your perspective, if you could just touch on as well, we talk about wanting more consistency of refereeing. How can we support that? Are we looking at more camps? What can the league actually do to help facilitate and assist the referees and officials, because they do have the hardest job out there?
Yeah, it's training and it's education. And, just as we've said, the gap between the Elite League and the league below is huge. The gap for a referee to make the move from the league below to referee in the Elite League is just as huge, if not greater. And what we decided to do was to bring in the four-man system to try and bring an experienced referee and a less experienced referee together to try and give some education. It's not an overnight thing. It will take quite a while. It will take a time in order for those officials who aren't maybe up to Elite League standard yet to get there. And one of the other things that we've done is we've enlisted the help of an organisation to do some of our DOPs, or in fact all of our DOPs. And part of their brief is to improve the referee education programme. So, this is a thing that will take, it's a constant development. It will take time, but we are looking at improving the standard and the pool of refereeing right across the board. Todd?
Todd, just so and also, can we clear up the second shooter on the grassy knoll scenario? Who is DOPS? Because everyone always asks that at these weekends.
Who is DOPS? DOPS is a myth wrapped in an enigma, surrounded by a riddle. There is no DOPS. DOPS is headed up by Lyle Seitz. He's the head of hockey operations for the EIHL League, the Austrian EIHL League. He also looks after the DOPS for the Champions Hockey League. He's a former NHL official. That's who he is. Does he exist? Yes. He was here this weekend. He was here for both games yesterday. He was down in the locker room giving feedback to the referees. I think it's important that, like Mike said, this is not an overnight fix. If you think about it, if you want to bring an official up, I'll use it in a playing scenario. If we want to, Tom's Rutkus is a young British player that plays for us. What would be better for Tom's? To come in and train with us and play on the fourth line and get some ice time, or come in and put him on our first line and say, you're now on the power play? Which is he going to have more success at? He needs to develop. And the referees, if you're a young official refereeing in whatever the league's called now, the EIHL, you're in the EIHL, reffing Telford and Peterborough, and then you're asked to come do an Elite League game between Sheffield and Nottingham. The jump's too great. There's so much at stake. Coaches are screaming at you. This way, what we did is we took them in, and they're sharing the stress, I guess, of being an official with another guy. I'm a big fan of the four-man system. I think it speeds up the game a lot. If you look at the average ice, I know this is a nerdy stat, but if a four-man official, a normal game might take 2.5 hours to play, right? With four-man system, it's probably down around 2 hours and 15 minutes now. It's a small thing, but it's a speed of play, right? The face-offs are quicker. After a goal, it's quicker. And for teams, I think it's better for a product as well. It's also for controlling. If you watch the four-man system, when there's an incident on the ice, one ref is over at the incident, the other one goes out to the other bench and controls the bench, right? So I think it works really well. I think our refs are still learning. I don't think our officials, if the league has done this over the last 5 years, officials have been like this, right? Because we haven't really invested in them or anything like that. So if you think of them as the 13th team in the league, that's how we have to treat them. We need to put as much effort that we put into our own teams. We have to give them as much support and effort, and right now I don't think we give them enough support. So, yeah, was that an okay?
Yeah. No, I'll go with that. That's good. Back over to you guys. You have a question for?
I have a question for Paul Dixon.
Okay, the gentleman in the white shirt at the end. You've got a question for Paul.
Paul Dixon, if you could trade for any player in the Elite League, except for someone on the Cardiff Devils, who would you trade for?
Oh, that's a big question. That's a really big question. Who would I trade for? Do you want to give a name of one of my players who would be in the trade, or I've got a... No, okay.
Just remember you got Guillaume Doucet sitting to your right as well.
Yeah. You've caught me off guard there, Todd. Really have. There's lots of good players. You can go through all the rosters, and like I said before, there's 5-6 guys who are real franchise players, real game changers. And every team in the league's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right now, obviously, I don't want to give too much away because we are in that recruiting process, Todd. So there's a lot of players that we're looking at from other teams. So right now, nobody's safe. And your team as well, that's right, yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm going to leave that there.
Who's going to be the first person to tweet out the Joey Martin to Guildford rumour?
That is a good one.
That's a good one. He's going with that. I'm going to ask a question we get asked a lot when we do this Q&A in well, we don't get asked it at the Q&A, but we get asked it on the fans forum and what have you. There's Cardiff Devils have won back-to-back league championships, but they sometimes get criticised for not playing physical hockey. We've seen in the NHL, the last 2 Stanley Cup winners, the Pittsburgh Penguins, have won the Stanley Cup really without an enforcer on the team. In fact, they traded their enforcer away this year. And the Elite League always tends to follow a couple of years behind what North America does. Is ice hockey, it's never become less physical, but is ice hockey changing and becoming more of a speed game? And how do you think that will go over with the fans? And Guy, maybe start with you.
Yeah, I think yes, it is changing. For a guy like me that's 5'9", I think it's perfect because I would not be playing if it was not changing. I mean, since I've been playing junior, it's been changing. The game has been changing. The calls are different. You used to be up, you guys know that, but you used to be able to slash and hook and they would not get called. So I think as a player, it's way more fun. It's faster. There's more skill involved. So hopefully you guys enjoy it more. I wouldn't want to pay £100 and come see guys clutch and grabbing, and that's not entertaining. So I hope it is going to continue to change and keep getting faster and more skills. I mean, some of the goals we see in the league are high level. Like that would not happen if the game was not changing. It would be boring hockey, trapping, like in the good old New Jersey Devil 90s kind of way. And I don't think nobody wants to see that.
I'd agree with that. Paul, your thoughts on it, seeing the game develop?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from a coach's point of view, when we sat down last year, that was our philosophy in Guildford. We wanted to put a speed team together. We wanted to put a skill team together because that's the way that we believe the game's going. I know that's only one man with one club, but I think if you look, you talked about the NHL, you talked about European leagues, and like I said, I would much rather prefer a guy going down the ice at 100 mile an hour being able to beat 1 or 2 guys and, like Doucet there, clutching and grabbing and different stuff like that. I think the game's changed. I think that game was maybe years ago, and I think we've got to move forward, and I think we have. I think we've made some good steps, like I said. I mean, there's certain highlight reel goals and, sorry, Nottingham fans, but if you take John Armstrong's goal last night, I mean, that's unbelievable. And like you say, there's a guy with all that skill. And like I said, I could go through everyone's team with every one of those guys. I've got 4, 5, 6 guys in that team that can do that. And from a fan, I think that's what fans want to see. And yeah, I know obviously hockey's a physical game, and we want to see the big hits. There's nothing wrong with the big hits. It is fast and physical. It is a contact sport still. Let's not forget that. But I think the days of having 4, 5, 6 what we want to call heavyweight fighters on your roster, I think those days have gone. I think it's time to move forward with the times and reach out and play that hockey.
Just before I'll bring Mike and Todd in that from an ownership perspective, and I guess putting bums on seats. But Paul, specifically in Guildford, I don't know whether you were aware of it, whether you follow the social media or the websites. In the summer, there were a lot of people looking at your club and going, "Oh, I think we can probably bully them," and what have you. You obviously set out to build your team on speed. I think you were probably the fastest team in the league. Were you aware of that, and was that always your mindset that you were going to have that quick transition game? Yeah,
I think, like I said, I mean, when we obviously put our team out in the summertime, that was our blueprint. That was what we wanted to do. We wanted to go with small guys, and yeah, you do see comments coming back and different stuff, and certain comments. Are we going to sign anybody over 6 foot? And are we going to sign everybody over 5'9"? Actually, and I think that speaks for itself. I don't want to go too far down that road, but there's a lot of good players. You don't have to be big and strong if you can skate well, and that was it. That was our objective in the summertime. Is if we can skate and get up and down the ice, then we can compete. I'm not saying you're going to win games, but you can compete if you can get around the ice.
Mike, Todd, I'm going to throw the same question at you, but again, from an ownership perspective, is there a balance to be drawn from the fact that, you know, I love watching the speed game, but rightly so, there are equally the number of customers who want to come and see the physical element, even the gloves dropped in a few fights. From an ownership point of view, is it tough to find kind of a balance between the two?
I think very much so. I think, you know, I'm probably like Todd. I believe speed and skill is the way forward. But you know, we still hanker for the days of Eric Cairns versus Wade Belak and Andre Payette versus Paul Ferrona, whoever. You know, those were entertaining bits of the game. And we've really got to sort of find a level at which, you know, you get a bit of both. I think the days of the pure heavyweight fighter have actually gone from our league now. We are looking more in terms of a tough guy who can play a bit rather than a tough guy. Todd?
Totally agree. Yeah, I think I think the days, like, I mean, I'm a bad example for this because I brought Sean McMorrow here to this league, and at the time, at the time we needed to sell tickets, and he was shooting pucks at other teams in warm up and fighting in first shift of the game, and I hate to say it, we as a business person, it was against everything in my hockey mind, but we were desperate and we needed to sell tickets, and he sold a lot of tickets. But I think the hockey fan in the UK is an educated fan now. Gone are the days that we can say, like at the time, we're like, well, Belfast fans they've only been watching hockey for 8 years or 9 years at the time. So, you know, Belfast fans have been watching hockey for 18 years, and fans around the league have been watching for 30 years, and you guys know the sport. And I think, much like Deuce and Dixon said, like, speed and skill is more exciting. I would much rather, like, I'll give you an example. Is there Manchester fans here? Where's the Manchester fans? There's got to be some. They're there in the back. I would much rather watch Hammond.
Yep.
Led the league in scoring, 100 points or whatever, right? 95 points. Would you rather watch Hammond or Rosehill? And that's what you have to decide. And Rosehill's a great player, and he's played in the NHL, but what Rosehill did in this league is not as exciting as Hammond. And on my team last year, would I rather watch Doucet score a goal or Patrick Bordelot fight?
We didn't get to see that.
Well, I didn't get to see that, so... no, I saw a lot of goals. I saw a lot of goals, that's for sure. No, but it's a changing game. Like Nottingham last year, they brought in McGrattan, right? And yeah, he was very popular, but again, Brian McGrattan doesn't sell the tickets as much as the speed and skill does anymore. I don't think that everyone thinks, like, you talk about these glory days of fights. Like, I played in Belfast. There's a guy named Paxton Schulte. People talk about Paxton Schulte. I remember asking our fans, like, how many times do you think Paxton fought in a year? And they'd be like, 50, 60 times? I'd be like, the most fights he ever had was like 9 or 10, right? But in your head, you think they fight all the time, right? And because those are the glory days. Mike Ware fought every single game in Cardiff. He almost did, but he didn't fight every game, right? And I think nowadays, the skill we have, like John Dunbar, don't worry, I'm not going to try to recruit him, I promise you. But, no, I'm not. But John Dunbar, for like, what a player this year. How exciting was he to watch? He was, like, every game, you found, like, we lost to you guys 8-4, and I found myself watching how good Dunbar was. I was just like, Jesus, he's a great player. And that's exciting. That's exciting hockey. Like, I'm sure you cheer that more than you cheer a fight. I'm lucky in Cardiff. I have a guy that's a great player, and he's tough. And Justin Farina. And I'd rather see a guy like that get in a fight because he goes to the net. A defenseman doesn't like that. He runs into the goalie or whatever, and they fight organically grown within the game. I don't want him to have to shoot pucks and warm up like McMorrow did. So, but if anyone is looking for any Sheriff McMorrow T-shirts, I think we still have about 10,000 of them in Belfast. So, talk to Mark Brooks over there. He's still selling them.
We might have to excuse Paul Dixon in a moment. I think he's going to make a phone call to Joan Dunbar, make sure that contract's signed. So the GB Under-18s have had a great tournament. I believe, have they just won gold as well? I've been following. So they've just won gold, which I think deserves a round of applause. So we always talk about the Elite League has to be a product league rather than development league, and I think we all understand that because it's got to be self-sufficient. It's got to stand on its own 2 feet. But and Todd, I'm not going to look at you for this question again. What do we think? Is there talent coming through? What is the nature of encouraging that junior development?
I think one of the things that we did last year was we allowed teams to take on up to 3 younger players to develop on top of the originally agreed roster size. Not everybody took up that option from day one, but I think you will see more of that happening now over the next year or two. We have to encourage a pool of British talent, and I don't just mean to develop the GB programme. I mean to develop our commercial base. If we can develop a team of British talent and get a number of British players in every team, then it holds a better future for ice hockey in general. And I think this is something that every team will now be working on and working very hard on. So.
I think Paul would probably be better to answer this because you probably know more about the British game than I. Honestly, I think I like the under 23 rule to initially get guys into the league and stuff, but it's tough because what happens when the guys that I brought in under the under 23 rule in a year are now overage, right? Do you just get rid of? Do I just replace the older Brits and just keep cycling through them? I think there's more to do for development than just the under 23 rule. But
before you pass on the mic, sorry, and is that rule in for another year? Is that rule changing?
I think it's in for another rule. I think we have a board meeting on the 17th of April, and where we'll kind of discuss all the rules. But as far as I know, I think it's sticking around. I don't.
Paul, I'm interested in your take on junior development, but also with a slightly different slant for Guildford. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but. A lot of us in the Elite League were always wondering when Guildford were going to come in because you're a very well-run club, it's a great area, etc. Were you kind of one of the deciding factors waiting to see the Elite League wasn't going to go away the Super League and there was going to be that British contingent? Has a British contingent always been very important in Guildford?
Yeah, obviously over the years, a lot of the success has been down to the British players that we've had in Guildford. Going back to that under 23 ruling, we had a couple of players. All right. We had a couple of players there this year. You have a very different situation where these guys want to play and they want to play at the highest level they can and they train with you out on a daily basis, but come game time, for the pressures of obviously the professional players that's in that team, your imported players, they want to play. And, you know, we had to release 2 of our under 23 players this year, and it was just purely down to the fact that we weren't playing them, and at their age I didn't want to see that go to waste. And you can train all day long, you can train with the main team, but you need to play games. You need to play on a Saturday and Sunday. You need to know that you're going to play minutes on a Saturday and Sunday, and I didn't want to hold those 2 guys back, and we made the decision to release those guys to go and play in the lower league, which is not what they wanted to do. They still wanted to stay in Guildford, but it's just there's no progress there. They weren't going to progress into the ice time in the Elite League for us, so it's a tough call, but all you can do again is these guys, hopefully if you can get some younger guys in, Sheffield's a really good example of this with obviously Kirk and Shudra. If you get younger guys into your programme from a younger age and maybe keep them in there, put them on 2 ways, have them for 3 or 4 years in that system with you, and then when they get to 21, 22, 23, they may be able to progress into the Elite League team. But it's a very difficult situation regarding the British players.
Just before you pass the mic on, and I'm not looking to throw you under the bus here, but particularly with those 2 players, did they see that you were being constructive? They were obviously naturally disappointed, but the way you communicated that, did they see the merits of the decision?
Absolutely. I think obviously there's nothing worse as a coach when you look down your bench and everybody wants to play. All 22 players, they all want to play. They all want to play power play. They all want a penalty kill. And there's nothing more frustration as a coach when you look at a player and you know that you're not going to play that guy. And you feel sorry for him because you want to play him, but you know you can't because he's just not up to that level. And when we explained it, and we meet with our guys on a daily basis, and it was explained, and yeah, there's disappointment that, you know, you are finishing that dream with your club at that moment in time, and then they have to go and obviously play in that lower league, and yeah, it's a hard decision to make, but both the guys understood. They didn't at the time, but looking back after a little bit of time, they did both understand why we did that.
Guy, from a player's perspective, you go into a team wanting to win, and wanting to win, you want the best roster. But as a player, do you see that responsibility of passing on your kind of North American junior experience to the Brits? How is it for a player looking at it?
I don't really know what. I mean, these guys are our teammates. I don't see the Brit as a different teammate that is an import. This guy's my teammate. I mean, obviously there's a lot of import in this league, so there's fewer Brits on the rosters, but I've been fortunate to play with some Brits that you wouldn't know he's not an import. So, I mean, the younger guys, if we're talking about the under 23s, I mean, yes, you try to help them. These guys, like Paul said, I think the most important thing is these guys need to play. If you're 21, 22-year-old and you're not playing, you're not going to get better. You need to be in the game. You need to make mistakes still to get better. So obviously on a day-to-day basis, I can try to do my best in practice and try to help him and give him tips or coach him. But I think it comes down to playing time. These guys need to play.
I think that probably wraps it up for us. So I just want to say thank you to all the guys in the background and Dave with the infrastructure allowing this to happen today, the guys at the Salt Box who have kindly put it on for us, and of course our panelists, Todd Kelham, Mike Cowley, Paul Dixon, Guillaume Doucet. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Go and enjoy your hockey. Here's hoping for a great final. Thank you.